Hello, this is Joe Polish, president of Piranha Marketing and founder of the Genius Network interview series, and you're about to hear one of my Genius Network interviews, and I just want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this, and I hope you find it very useful. If you want to find out more information about some of the interviews and resources that can help you in your business, you can go to www.joepolish.com. And we have a Joe Polish Recommends section with all kinds of resources and vendors and services and products that we recommend that could help you in your business. And also for more useful interviews and a whole list of other people that I've interviewed, you can go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks and enjoy the interview. Hello, this is Joe Polish, and I want to welcome you to a Genius Network conversation inside the minds of movers and shakers and moneymakers, as I was recently told Genius Network actually is. So that's pretty cool. I've got a friend and a extremely smart and talented guest with me. His name's Parris Lampropoulos, which has the longest name of, I think, anyone that I've ever interviewed, Parris. So how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Okay, we've been talking about doing the Genius Network for quite a while now. You are known in the marketing world as one of the top copywriters on the planet. Even people like Clayton Makepeace, who is unbelievably awesome, has made hundreds of millions of dollars with his copy. Probably, well, actually, it's over $1 billion. Said publicly, I was there, that you're one of the top 3 copywriters in the world. And I would, of course, because I'm friends with so many amazing marketers and copywriters, I'd like to instill some sort of, competition here, but we probably won't go there. Anyway, you've written copy for huge companies. I'm going to ask you about them, and you're known as the copywriter who's brought in to beat existing controls from other A-list copywriters, and your controls, which is the copy that you write, wins 80% of the time whenever you're engaged in important marketing campaign. So for the listeners, you're not someone that goes out there and writes books, and this is one of the rare moments that people can actually hear some of your knowledge, which is why it's such a great thing to be doing this interview with you. Who is Parris? What do you do? A little bit of background on you for our listeners, and then I'm going to ask you some questions that'll make everyone some money.
Well, thanks for the introduction, Joe. I'm basically, like you said, I get called on to write copy to beat the existing control. Because, they keep mailing the same thing over and over again. Sooner or later, the response is going to fall to the point where it's not worth mailing. So they'd rather beat it sooner rather than later. You've been with me like on these meetings with the folks at Boardroom where they say the control is the enemy. So they're always out to beat it. I have one client, I used to joke, like, the ink's not even dry yet on the one you just wrote, where they're hiring somebody else to go up against you. So, it's like this big battle royale.
So it is a pretty competitive field that most people, I think a lot of people listening, they don't even think of a copywriter. What is a copywriter? What do they actually do? And I think people undervalue the importance of copy, but I think what will be revealed here through our conversation for everyone is just how darn important copy is and how much the profitability of your business hinges on the effectiveness of a copywriter, and you are the secret weapon for a lot of companies that are worth, over $100 million a year. You're the type of guy that's brought in to create the stuff needed in order to make that money.
Yeah, copy is supremely important because it's your salesman.
Okay, I want to actually go there, but before I want to define copy and I want to define a control. How long have you been doing this, Parris?
It'll be, it's 19 and a half years.
Okay, and why the heck did you get into this whole role of being a copywriter? I've often wondered how people actually end up doing this sort of stuff.
Totally stumbled into it. I knew I was a good writer because, as I was in school, my English teachers used to say, "Oh, you should be a writer," but I didn't want to do it because it's painful to write. And it's usually not lucrative, Most writers are starving. So I did a bunch of different things in my life. I've been a dishwasher, waiter, short order cook, shipping clerk, bookkeeper. I even, very few people know this, but I did like children's birthday parties where I would do magic tricks and games and stuff. You name it, I've done it. And I've been like a miserable failure at almost everything I've done. I also did, telemarketing. I did door-to-door sales, and I did real estate sales. And it was when I was a real estate salesperson that I came across an ad for the Gary Halbert letter. I'll never forget it. It said, how to make people line up and beg you to take their money. And it really resonated with me because it talked about copy that compels people to buy. And I had that experience. I've been a lifelong mail order buyer. You know, when I was a kid, I would buy, magic tricks through the mail and stamps for my stamp collection and all this and that. And then when I got older, I'd start getting these pitches for investing stuff and, I'd get stuff from Boardroom. I mean, I was in my 20s and I was buying stuff from Boardroom, which I didn't realize at the time, but that's just not done. I mean, most of their buyers are people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s. And, I would read these bullets and I'd be like, oh, my God, I got to have this. And so when I got that thing from Halbert, it really resonated with me. And I read the copy and it said he's going to teach you how to do this and this and this and this. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm sold. So I sent him in my $195, which is what it used to cost for a subscription to Gary's letter back then, and bought the thing. And in it was an article that said how to get a product to sell if you don't already have one. And the basic idea was you write information products and you sell them through the mail. So I got all excited because this was like 1990, right? It was during the last real estate crash. So, people were dying. They couldn't sell their homes. They were upside down, all this stuff. So I said, I'm going to write a book on how to, how to sell your house in a dead market. I'm going to sell it through the mail and I'm going to get rich. So, of course, I didn't know anything. I was a total idiot. I didn't know that you can't get rich selling books unless you're a huge company like, Boardroom or Rodale or one of those. And I didn't know that a typical response rate is 2%. And, I just thought everybody's going to buy this thing, right? Because why wouldn't they? So, people ask me, how'd you first learn how to write copy? And the way I first learned how to write copy was by maxing out all my credit cards, because I'd write something and it wouldn't make money. And so I'd try it again and that wouldn't make money. And I didn't have money to spend on the mailing. So I would do it on my credit cards. And, pretty soon you're either going to end up in the poorhouse or you're going to figure the thing out.
Yeah, we have such similar paths in terms of I was introduced to direct response marketing and copywriting from the Gary Halbert letter, reading it, subscribing to it, same exact way. I honestly didn't even know that about you. I mean, maybe we had that conversation before in the past and I just totally forgot. But that's how I got introduced to copy, is through Gary. And you said something really important that I think is worth highlighting here, which is you're either going to figure it out or you're going to, be in the poorhouse. What was it that drove you in this area? Because in the beginning, when I first started learning marketing, it's not boom, I immediately had an instant hit. I mean, it was painful, and there is a process. And I think that, if people are not willing to go through that process, they're never going to derive the incredible financial benefits that can come from learning how to be a effective marketer, effective copywriter, or utilizing it. I mean, the whole goal here of us talking is not to turn everyone into a quote-unquote world-class copywriter. Some people may go down that path. Others, if you at least understand the importance of this subject, the critical importance of this subject, you'll know how to go and hire copywriters or just to use copy in general, because I think it's one of the most neglected, critical parts of the anatomy of a successful business that exists that 99% of businesses just don't even focus on. So, I mean, would you agree with that statement?
Well, 99% of businesses don't focus on it. When I tell, it's always funny, you're at a party and somebody asks you, what do you do for a living? If I tell them I'm a copywriter, they're like, oh, you mean like the copyright office, like the government? No. Or I say, oh, I'm a marketing consultant. They think it has to do with supermarkets or something. There's that old Dan Kennedy joke where he tells them they're a marketing consultant and they say, oh, how come that one wheel on the shopping cart never turns right? So it's like the best way to explain it that people get it is I say, oh, I write junk mail, and then, you tell them that, and they're like off to the other end of the room because they don't want to talk to you. But most businesses don't know about it. Any business that does it, even half-assed, if I can say that on tape, is going to kick butt, right? I mean, you've seen it a million times. Your carpet cleaners, right? All they have to do is do any kind of direct response advertising, and they're going to blow all their competition away. But then even within that group of people who do it, there's a group of people who do it better than others. And my contention is that the vast majority of people who are doing it can be doing it better, and that most people are leaving a ton of money on the table.
Yeah, I agree. So that's what I want to get into. So let's first start with defining what some of the marketing terms is that we use all the time. And for those of you that are listening that are advanced marketers and copywriters, I think it's good to hear this again. It's always good to remind ourselves what is, the basics. And then for people that are brand new, I think this will open up your whole world to things that you might not even be aware of. And I think you'll be able to share some things, Parris, that no one on an interview has ever really talked about in the area of writing copy. Because like I said in the beginning, you're not a guy that goes out there and actually really spends a lot of time teaching this to other people. I mean, you have private, A-level copywriters that you've trained and that you work with. However, you're not like someone that's ever positioned yourself as a quote-unquote teacher, guru sort. So what is direct response marketing, and then what is copy? I'd like to define those two things.
Yeah, direct response marketing is very simple. It's any kind of advertising or marketing vehicle that asks someone to take an action. So you could use it to generate leads. People send away for a free report, like you've done with the free, the Consumer Awareness Guide, right? So, that's an action. It's not image advertising. It's not a logo. It's not a saying. It's not a Coke is it or, whatever the heck they're doing now on Madison Avenue. It's designed to get a response, and therefore it is 100% measurable, so you know exactly how well it's doing. So you run an ad, how many people sent away from my free consumer guide? Was it 5? Was it 10? Was it 50? Was it 100? Or maybe you're selling something right off the ad, like I do. I'll send a mailing where people have to subscribe to Bottom Line Personal, or people have to buy this nutritional supplement I'm selling or whatever, and we can count to the penny how many orders came in. So there's no room for theory or BS. You can't snow anybody in this business because everything's measurable and everything's held accountable.
What are your thoughts on marketing that is not direct response? Image advertising, logos, brand building, name recognition, that sort of stuff.
I think there's a great value in it, but I think it's 100% impractical for a smaller to medium-sized business.
Okay, well, you didn't say 95% impractical. You said 100% impractical.
Did I say 100% impractical?
Yeah. So does that mean it's...
No. For a small business. All right, let's say 99%, okay? Nothing's 100%. But, unless you get lucky or strike lightning, brand building is very expensive. And it's a great way to go broke.
If you're a small company, yeah, exactly. It is. And that's one of the reasons that I am starting out in my carpet cleaning business, which is how I stumbled into marketing. Not because I've told this story a million times. I never got into teaching and doing what I'm doing now because I thought I'd ever be a quote unquote marketing expert, guru, teacher, that sort of thing. I learned marketing because I needed to eat. I needed to survive. And I was trying to get my name out there. I was trying to use image and brand and all that stuff, brand building, and it got me nowhere. And it was completely impractical and completely worthless. However, I run across people all the time that's all they've ever been exposed to. And they have this visceral reaction that when you start telling them their brand isn't important or their name recognition is important, all of a sudden they think, you're some evil person. And in reality, anyone that is conveying that message to a small business owner in a way that they actually get it is providing them the best value that probably anyone is ever going to show up and share with them in regards to them having a business that actually works. Because it doesn't matter how great your craft is or your product or your service or you as a human being or how much integrity or honesty you have or how much, you volunteer work you do or donate to charities or how much of a great parent you are. None of that will do anything to get people to buy from you unless you have effective marketing. And I've never seen a small business owner have the budget to do brand building and not go broke before they actually reach that, wonderful place where big businesses, do have, gigantic foundations where they can afford to do, brand building.
Yeah, you said something there. When somebody studies Joe Polish or Dan Kennedy or Jay Abraham or anybody who teaches, business people how to do marketing, the effects are just incredible. I mean, it's just like, astronomical growth in their sales and profits, and these people become like evangelists because the stuff really works. Now, if you want to get back to brand building for a second, you can build a brand through direct response. The branding is the sort of the side effect of the direct response, or a side benefit. So if you look at somebody like Tony Robbins, for example, he's a big brand, right? Everybody's heard of him. He's a brand. He stands for something. But he built his business totally on direct response. If you try to build your business on branding, if you're going from zero, starting from scratch like he did and like a lot of us did, and you're trying to build on branding, there's no way in hell you're going to do that unless you have venture capitalists up the wazoo, like Amazon or something like that, where or one of those companies, where they had people throwing $100 million at them to play with. Well, yeah, then it's doable. But why do that? It's such a difficult way. It's a very low percentage game to be playing.
Yeah, and for small business owners and the entrepreneurs that are out there running companies and doing it, I mean, the ones that actually be listening to this interview right now, they're the ones that are most poised to utilize direct response, and the biggest service we could provide them is to have them really think about what are they doing to generate business and what can they do to improve it. And, I've always defined image advertising or institutional as, non-direct response as the goal is to get your name out there, whereas direct response is to get your name out there and get a response at the same time. And if you do that, then you are still brand building. You are creating name recognition, but you're also, it's trackable, it's measurable. You can know what's working and what isn't, so you're not just funneling money down a black hole and you have to sit and scratch your head and say, what's working, what isn't working. Does direct response, and again, I'm asking you questions I know the answer to here, but more for the benefit of our listeners. Is this something that can only be used offline, online? I mean, what environments can you not do direct response in? Meaning, can you do?
There's really no environment that you can't use it. There are limitations. For example, if you're selling something through the mail, there's a classic story about somebody who tried to sell paint, and it becomes impractical to ship it because it weighs a ton and all that kind of thing. But, as far as the principles of direct response, getting leads, getting people to call you or respond to something, it's limitless. There's Joe Sugarman, I think, sold a plane using direct response.
I think Joe's pretty much sold every. Well, can I a real quick story? Like yesterday, I was down at the headquarters of Beachbodies.com. talking with the owner, John and Carl, and they've built, they've hundreds of millions of dollars, and they, had built this whole company, which has a huge brand. They have like some infomercial products, P90X, Slim and Six, a product called Insanity, skincare, and they're very, very sharp dudes, and they're cool dudes, and so, Joe Sugarman was like very influential in their business career. They give his book out to all of their marketing people, and he was explaining this, and I said, hey, let's call Joe Sugarman. And so we get Joe Sugarman on the line. They never met before, never talked. And, Joe, for those that don't know, sold over $300 million worth of sunglasses, blue blocker sunglasses, using, direct response infomercials. And before he got into that, he sold everything. I mean, he even tried selling a mousetrap, because they said build a better mousetrap. And that was, just as more so, I think, just for his own purposes of seeing what actually can be done with direct response. And, there's very few environments where you can. But anyway, that just reminded me when you said that, and it gave me an excuse to just bring up two brands that Blue Blockers and Beachbodies, both gigantic, multi-hundred-million-dollar organizations that have a huge brand, but were totally built with direct response.
Yeah, but to take it further about anything can be sold. We mentioned the airplane. Real estate, people have sold houses through direct response. Love. I mean, what are personal ads? Personal ads are basically a direct response medium. All this stuff now, the dating sites, the Match.com or whatever, you're writing a personal, people are responding to it. That personal, or profile, I guess they call it, that profile is a direct response ad.
Yep, and that's a great example to get people to really think about it. So if you want to meet your perfect mate, what can you do in advance with your profile? Well, what's any different about if you want to have the best clientele, the best prospects? What are you conveying? What are you communicating that's attracting what it is you want and is effective, and not just attracting who you don't want? Because a real lousy personal ad is probably going to get you a bunch of lousy prospects or no dates at all, no responses at all. In the same way, I kind of think of marketing in a headline and copy is like a pickup line if you're trying to ask someone to go out on a date with you.
Yeah, I've seen some of your pickup lines too, so, really good stuff.
So let me ask you then, define copy and define a control, and then I'm going to ask you some specifics that I think will make all of our listeners really take a good hard look at areas that are completely being neglected and money that's being left on the table, because you have some secret weapon, crazy ninja strategies, I know, and I want to talk about those. But define copy.
Okay, copy very simply is words that you use to get a result. So they could be words on a piece of paper, so a sales letter, a space ad, a classified ad. They could be words you use in a sales pitch, if you're doing a video on your website or an audio on your website. But, just very simply, they're words designed to get an action, and for our purposes, that action usually involves selling something.
Yeah, okay. So what is a control?
A control is the ad that's working for you right now, that's bringing you in the money, that's the best one you have right now. So it comes from, science, the scientific method, where you have an experimental group and a control group. Let's say I have an ad, and it's bringing in X number of sales per impression or per whatever. If you're mailing, it's per 1,000 pieces mailed. If you're in a space ad in a magazine, it's per, for that month, that subscription base. If it's a website, it could be per impression or per click if it was a pay-per-click. So I have an ad that's bringing in X number of sales per whatever it is. I want to try to beat that, because why not make more money, right? So maybe I'll decide I want to test a different headline. Maybe I have a headline that says how to get more energy every day, and I want to test a headline that says how to beat fatigue, right? So I will run a different version of that ad, and that will be the experimental group. My existing ad is my control, and I'm always trying to beat my control. Now, the very important thing, and this is kind of marketing 101, but just to cover that so everyone's on the same page here listening, you never want to test more than one variable at a time. See, if I test the headline and the price and the offer and the this and the that, and my new ad beats the old one, I don't know why it beat it. Was it the headline? Maybe the headline was lifting response, but the offer was lowering response. So you only want to test one thing at a time. When you beat your old control, the new one becomes your new control.
Yes, so most companies, I don't even think they would think of having any of the existing marketing strategies or selling methods is being viewed as their control. If you were to be brought into just a company that this is all brand new for them, and they have business, they're generating business, but they don't even know where it's coming from or where or why or whatever, where do you start with them? I mean, what do you say to someone that would call you in as a strategist? And I know there may not be one right answer for this, but I'd love to get your perspective on if you're being brought into that sort of environment and they don't really know what their control piece is. They don't really know what's working the best. How do you direct them to kind of get?
Yeah, I don't usually get brought into that environment. The people who hire me are really savvy, and they know tons about direct response, and they know everything from pay-per-click to mailing lists to database marketing, all kind. They're really sophisticated. So for me, when I come in, usually it boils down to copy. Here's your copy. I'm going to beat it. But if I were going into a mom and pop, you got to start way down at the basics. First of all, you got to tell them this whole bit about why they need direct response. Then you got to tell them the whole bit about collecting names. They're not even collecting names. I mean, when I say a name, I mean the person's contact information. Either their email address or snail mail. If it's a restaurant, you would tell them, here, have a big punch bowl up front for people to drop their personal info, and you have a drawing to win a free dinner. And now you can mail those people. You can send them promotions. You can send them all kinds of stuff. You want to ask them their birthday, so you could give them a free meal on their birthday, because we all know that what do people do on their birthday? They go out to eat. So when they're coming to get their free dinner, guess what? They're bringing 3 or 4 people with them, and now you've just made 3 or 4 sales that you wouldn't other have. And now you'll collect their info and you'll mail them, and so on and so forth. And everything's like this big. It's like a virtuous circle. It just keeps growing and growing and snowballing.
Well, and can I stop you there for just a second? I want to highlight what you just said. Even to this day, with how much ease and access it is to, collect emails and send people out, an email newsletter or a happy birthday or any sort of reminders, the vast majority of businesses in all categories still don't do it at all. And if they do a half-assed job at it. And, so what you're saying is critically important. And I think a lot of people, since I absolutely know the vast majority of people don't collect birthdays. I'm one of the few people where I'm really good about birthdays with my, top 20 people, and when I say top 20, it's more like my top, several thousand. But basically, they just don't do, I think the only consistent company for years that is Southwest Airlines that sends me birthday cards. And in terms of just restaurants that I even give emails to, because I want to watch how they do marketing, even the restaurants that collect like an email, which the vast majority don't, but the ones that even do, that put it in the bill or have like the fishbowl where you drop in your business card to go you do the free dinner, I'm lucky if 1 out of 20 ever really follow up effectively, if follow up at all. So I just wanted to point that out, because what you're saying, although is marketing 101, it's still really important if you're not doing it.
Okay, can I say something else about the fishbowl? That could be your control. Your control is we're using a fishbowl in the front by the cash register to collect names and addresses, or names and emails, right? So that's our control. Let's try, instead of that, or in addition to that, having a little card that comes in the little, portfolio-like thing that says American Express on it or whatever. By the way, there's another one. It's been tested, and they know that you get higher tips if you give them the check in one of those things or on a tray than if you just put the check down on the table. Okay, so that was tested. They found when you put it in the little portfolio thing, tips go up. So guess what? Everybody started doing that.
Well, my friend Robert Cialdini, who wrote the book Influence, I've interviewed him before. They've also tested how many mints you give someone. If you actually give someone twice as many mints and you verbalize that, their tip will go up by 10% average, just by adding in 2 extra mints and saying, hey, you guys were, great, and I wanted you to have a couple of extra mints, just by saying something like that. So now, unfortunately, most waiters and waitresses probably won't listen to this Genius Network interview, but if that information was fed throughout the entire wait staff throughout the United States, as an example, we would all raise their wages instantaneously by 10%. But unfortunately, they're not Genius Network subscribers. Unfortunately,
they're not. So if any of you know any waiters or waitresses, pass along the CD to them, and maybe they'll become subscribers. But, getting back to the whole testing thing, you have a punch bowl to collect people's business cards or information or whatever. So that's your control now. That's what's your workhorse that's out there working for you. One day you get the idea. You say, you know what? I'm going to test, rather than having a punch bowl, I'm going to test having a card that goes into that little thing when you give them the check. And the card says, join our, VIP club or whatever it is. You make up a nice name for it. And here are the benefits, and you'll get promotions and free stuff and all this. Just leave your name and email address there. Now you test that. One day you have the punch bowl, the next day you have that thing. The next day you have the punch bowl, the next day you have that thing. And then after the course of a week or two, you'll know which one's better, and that becomes your new control. And that's what you do until you find something to beat that.
Yeah, that's what you mean by just testing one variable at a time.
Right. I mean, in that case, there might be multiple variables because you have copy a sales pitch, but it's still really, for your purposes as a restaurant owner, you're not going to get all anal about, the mathematical precision and all that.
Yeah, part of it is just, instead of overthinking it, just do something, do anything is better than doing nothing at all and getting, totally caught up in, oh, am I doing it perfectly? Because I think it was Bob Hacker that had a quote that is, direct response marketing doesn't need to make sense, it just needs to make money. And there's a lot of stuff that just, to most people, would make no sense whatsoever, but people respond effectively to it. And so this is not, and let me ask you, this is not a game of logic. This is a game of totally human emotions. Would you agree with that?
My take on it is, you've heard this classic thing about salesmanship. People buy emotionally, and then they use logical arguments to rationalize, to justify the sale. So you can make people do some pretty insane stuff with your copy by pushing the right buttons. And I hope if we have time on this call, I can talk about some of that stuff. But you need to have the rational, logical argument in there so that they can justify it to themselves and others, right? So, there's the classic quote from Mark Twain: people buy for two reasons, the real reason and the reason they tell everybody else. So if you screw up on the logic end, it'll derail your whole sales process. Even though you got them emotionally engaged and worked up and all that stuff, if you screw up on the logical arguments, quote unquote, that they use to justify it to themselves and others, that may be enough to get them to go, you know what, I'm not going to do this. My copy, if you read it, it's not like Halbert's copy that grabs you by the throat. It's very subtle, and it's basically what I write is emotional copy disguised as logical copy. I write emotional copy that is disguised as logical, rational copy. And the reason I do that is because if you're really over the top emotional, bullshit detector goes up, they feel they're being sold to, whatever. My stuff comes in below the radar, and they don't even realize what's happening to them. They read it, and they start reading, oh, this is pretty cool. And before they know it, they're like reaching into their wallet to take their credit card out.
Let me say something to you. I actually got into a debate with a marketing guy recently at a conference because it's kind of funny. I've really worked hard over the years to make sure that in the use of very hypey, very powerful copy, I don't ever overpromise something that I can't deliver. And I'm very, very just focused on continual value creation and wowing people with everything that we sell. We deliver amazing stuff, and knock on wood, I've maintained a very good reputation in the marketing world for many, many years, and intend to do that for the rest of my life. And along the way, I've also learned a tremendous amount about selling and marketing from people that are frankly con artists, and that don't really care that much about what they deliver to people, but are really darn good at persuasion. And you can learn a tremendous amount. Just like if you're a fighter, you can learn a lot of stuff from a street fighter. And so I make this comment occasionally that all marketers are con artists. And it's, maybe similar to, Seth Godin's original book title of All Marketers Are Liars, which he changed the title to All Marketers Are Storytellers, because a lot of people misinterpreted what he meant by the title All Marketers Are Liars. And when I say, marketers are con artists, what I mean is they know the con, they know the game, they know that people need to be persuaded, and that people, it takes enormous amounts of persuasion to get people to do to do the things they want to do, let alone do the things that they have resistance to, like losing weight or exercising, and all the things that copywriters are brought in on whenever you need to sell a product in the health, how to make money, whatever department. And so I make this comment that, marketers are con artists, not because you want to go out and rip people off or con people. It's just you really got to understand that you're dealing with psychology, and you're dealing with human resistance at the highest level. And if you want to really help and influence someone in a direction that's good for them, simply being a nice person and smiling is not going to do the job. Copywriters literally, they know the tricks. And as long as it's legal, moral, and ethical, I think you should do whatever you need to do in order to persuade someone to get involved with your product, your service, whatever, under the caveat that if it adds value to their life and it's not hurting them. I know that's kind of a little bit of a tangent, but I wanted to get your take on that sort of thing? Because you said it goes in under the radar. It's disguised as rational copy. I mean, things like that seem like, oh, you're tricking people. Oh, so I wanted to get your take on what exactly is going on behind the scenes. What's taking place backstage?
Okay. Well, first of all, I never take on assignments to sell something that I'm not a big believer of. I won't work on it unless I think it's a great product that really helps people and improves their lives. And really, there's no reason not to operate that way. Okay? Let's say you're like a sociopath with no conscience at all and no value system and no morals or whatever. Even if that were the case, it doesn't make sense to sell crap. Why not sell stuff that's good? You make more money. It's easier to sell. It's just like there's no reason to sell crap. There's no reason to sell stuff that's bad for people. You can make more money selling stuff that's good for people. Not only is it easier to sell, is it easier to get jazzed about, but, your customers will come back for more, and that's where all the profits are in the business. So that's number one. Number two, I wouldn't say we trick people. Do we manipulate people? Well, that depends on how you define manipulation. If you ask Dave Lacanti, the way he defines manipulation is getting people to do things against their own interest. Whereas when you're using these tactics, techniques to get people that's good for them, he wouldn't define that as manipulation. He would just define it as a way to get a desired result that helps both you and them, that's win-win all around. So in essence, what you're doing is you're convincing the people to make the decision they want to make. People want to do stuff and they want to believe stuff, right? If you're like way overweight, you want to believe that there's this new solution that's going to really work for you finally. Get the weight off, keep it off. If you're broke, 6 months behind in your rent, like I was when I started in this business, and you get this pitch from Gary Halbert, you want to believe that this is going to be the secret that turns your financial life around. If you're a guy who's not getting any dates, you want to believe that Eben Pagan's course is going to, teach you how to meet women and get dates with them and all that stuff. So you want to believe it, but you're afraid to believe it because maybe you've been burned in the past by dishonest, unethical con men, or maybe you're afraid. One of the big fears that we have to overcome in our copy is the fear of being a chump. The fear of looking like an idiot because, oh, look, I just bought into another thing and got disappointed again. I'm such an idiot. That kind of thing. That's huge. So we want to do everything we can for them to overcome those fears, to convince them that, first of all, to take that desire they already have and ramp it up. And then secondly, to convince them beyond a shadow of a doubt that what we're doing really is going to work for them and that there's no risk in trying it.
That's great. I love hearing perspectives on that because it just I think it allows people to just know the reality of what how to look at it. And the thing is, I think you are doing the one of the biggest disservices that people could ever do is to have some product or service or system or insight or some piece of knowledge that would be incredibly valuable to either change someone's life, put a smile on their face, and in many cases save their life, and have the inability to get it out to the world because they're marketing cripples or they're worried about their quote-unquote image. And that's why I bring up things like that. Is my objective is not to teach people how to trick people into buying stuff. My objective is to take good people and teach them how to be more effective, bottom line. And there are certain things that if you do them, you will be effective. And if you choose not to, you won't. Being ineffective sometimes could mean being bankrupt. And so a lot of people, you've done it and I've done it. We've taken people that had great stuff and had no clue on how to sell it, and we taught them how through marketing and providing them with the marketing systems, and you, very specific in the area of writing killer copy, it changes their life. And if you change their life and equip them, then all of these people that they were unable to reach, they can now sell to, and that's what makes the world go around. So having said that, let me ask you some specifics that are money-making ninja stuff. How can the people listening do better than they're doing now based on using copy and understanding what you're talking about?
Well, look, one thing is, if you've read all the copywriting books and gone to the seminars and this and that and the other thing, and you're already doing it. This is who I speak to, because this is what I'm up against all the time, is people who are already doing it. Here's how to do it better. If your ad's bringing you, 50,000, here's how to make it bring you 100,000 or whatever, right? So one of the biggest mistakes I see with copy is that they'll have a claim that is very generic. Maybe generic's the wrong word, but they're not differentiating themselves enough from the other people in that category. So, if I see another thing in my email box about push-button internet riches, I'm going to vomit. It's like, that just washes off me like water off a duck's back. You really have to say something new and different and wow in every piece of advertising that you do. And preferably, you want to actually give away free information in your copy, because there's no greater proof that you know what you're talking about than you just showed them you know what you're talking about by teaching them something really cool. Your friend Eben has been going around preaching this. He calls it moving the free line. And, I've been moving the free line for, 15, 16 years now. The copy I write, it never looks like an ad. It always looks like either a magazine or a newsletter or a blog or something. It's not just tricking them, it's really an ad and you're tricking it to look like information. No, I'm really giving away information in my copy.
Can I say something about that too? You're absolutely right. And I mean, if you look at great copywriters years ago, I mean, they're educating people. They're giving away really valuable information. And yeah, Eben moving the free line and talking about that. I mean, one of the first things I was using in my carpet cleaning business, starting in 1992, was a free room of carpet cleaning, and I taught that process with free room of carpet cleaning with a carpet audit, which is an educational process. This is inside a home selling a carpet cleaning service. This is not an internet marketing course. This is not online. This is literally giving away a free room of carpet cleaning and a carpet audit to educate people and to show them the service. And I was moving the free line and have taught in the carpet cleaning industry, have taught thousands of professional cleaners. And today, I mean, as we sit here and do this interview, there are thousands of carpet cleaning jobs being performed all over the world from clients that were all brought in using that marketing technique that I created and have given to thousands of carpet cleaners out there. And it's all about you giving free, valuable information and even giving them a free trial of your services to see if they like it, we'll do more.
And even before that, Joe, before you give them that, the Consumer Awareness Guide is free information. So, before that thing came along, what are they doing? They're calling up carpet cleaners, and they don't know what the hell to ask, right? I don't know what to ask, so what do I ask? Oh, how much does it cost?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we've got hundreds of vans all over the country that now have, a free recorded message on the side of their van so that people can call while they're driving and listen to a recorded message on how to choose a carpet cleaner. That's free information. That's a consumer awareness guide put into the form of a free recorded message.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a really great way to, we were talking about branding before. You're branding yourself when you do that. I mean, don't do it for branding, do it to get orders, but that helps in the whole positioning of you in the prospect's mind. So, people want to go to the go-to guy. They want to go to the one who they know knows his stuff. They want to not get screwed. And it's very hard for them to figure out how to tell who's going to screw them or who's incompetent or an idiot, So you got to show them that you're the guy by providing them with information that blows them away. And ideally, you want information that's just like a forehead slapper kind of thing. I had a young copywriter recently show me this ad he wrote for some kind of fitness thing. And he had a sidebar in there that showed, do this. Oh, it was for boxing. That's what it was. Do this little exercise. And it was like, do 3 jabs with the left and then do this and all this other stuff. And I go, well, why is that in there? He says, well, I'm moving the free line. I'm giving him free stuff. I said, well, yeah, but it's not exciting. It's kind of what you'd expect to hear. You want to tell them something that's shocking, surprising, crazy, just like, what? Do you want them to go, what? That bottom line health promotion that I talked about with you, I think before we got on the phone. The royalties on that thing have been paying my mortgage, utilities, and car payments for the last 6 years. And if you read it, it's got all kinds of nuggets like the blow people away. Like, for example, you should never talk on a cell phone before you go to bed because it scrambles your brain waves and you can't sleep. There's actually studies proving this. And, that's the kind of stuff that, our buddy John Carlton, he always says, make your copy be the most exciting thing that happens to them that day. Because a lot of people, their lives are kind of boring. They don't do interesting stuff. They don't meet interesting people. They just kind of sleepwalk through life. And you want your copy to just have lots of juice in them so people get a kick out of it. They enjoy reading it. They learn something. Their lives are better from having read it, whether they buy your product or not.
And I totally agree with that too, because most people, you can be the smile on their face by showing up with the right type of copy in the form of a letter, online, a video, and all. Would you consider copy beyond the printed word? Because that's always I wanted to ask you that. And
it could be oral in like on a recording on a CD or an MP3 or something. Or a little recording, they press a button on your website. It could be video, right?
Well, you know ways that people are leaving money on the table, and you said to me that everybody is leaving money on the table. So let's just assume that everyone listening to us here, if that is correct, is leaving money on the table. What do they do about it? All
right, I'll give you a few sort of basic, easy ones. One of them was what I just said, generic promise. How is your benefit different from everybody else's? You got to tell them that. You got to tell them something new they never heard before. It's all about telling them something new and different. I gave you that example of the cell phone, right? Now, a lot of people, they say, well, that's fine. You're writing for Boardroom and they have all this weird stuff and they have a panel of experts, but I don't have anything new and different in my business. I do basically the same thing everybody else does. Well, even if you're doing that, you can still make it sound really cool. You, Joe, know the story of Claude Hopkins, and I'll just say it really quick for people who are listening who don't know about it, but Claude Hopkins was like the Babe Ruth of advertising. He was in the 1920s, I believe. He got hired by Schlitz Beer to write their ads, and he went down to their brewery, and he saw all this cool stuff, like this big well that got water from 50 feet underground, and this steam thing and the other thing and the filter and the this and the mother yeast cell that they use for all the other yeast. And he was like, wow, this is fascinating. Why aren't you telling people about this in your advertising? And they said, everybody does this. Every brewery does this. He said, yeah, but no one's told the story before. So he ran all these ads, and Schlitz went from, I don't remember where they were like number 12 or something, and they went to number 2 in a matter of just a few months because of these ads. So you can always find something. Let me give you an example of how I took the most mundane thing in the world and made it sound really cool. You want to hear this? I'm a doctor, right? Because a lot of times I'm writing in the voice of a doctor. So I'm saying to you, Joe, I'm going to tell you about the single most important thing you can do for good health. And it's really easy to do. Anyone can do it. Costs absolutely nothing. No, it doesn't involve exercise. It doesn't involve supplements. It doesn't involve changing your diet. It doesn't involve, stress reduction, meditation, drinking more water. None of that crap. And if you do this thing, I had a patient who was able to totally get rid of her allergy symptoms by doing this. I've seen people's energy levels rise. I've seen their blood sugar normalize. I've seen nutritional deficiencies completely go away. I've seen people get rid of heartburn, gas, bloating, constipation. And I've seen people who struggled with overeating suddenly find that they're eating normally and they're not binging, all by doing this one thing. You want to hear what it is? Chew your food well. Now, you've heard that a million times, right? But here's the thing. It's something everybody's heard, everybody knows, but nobody does. And see, here's how it works. You've heard the old adage, you are what you eat, right? Well, it's not true. The truth is, you are what you eat, digest, and absorb. So plain and simple, if you don't digest your food, you're not going to get the required nutrients into your cells. The most critical stage of digestion is the one that starts in your mouth. Because first of all, the saliva contains an enzyme called amylase that helps digest your carbs. Second, when you're chewing, it breaks everything into smaller particles so they can be digested by the stomach. Third, when you chew your food, your taste buds actually signal your stomach and your pancreas to produce digestive juices and pancreatic enzymes and bile and all that, so that when it gets down there, it's actually digested. Now, if you don't chew your food well, very little of this happens. And the result is you get these clumps of partially digested food go through your system. And what happens with these clumps of partially digested food is they scrape along the sides of your intestines, and they cause these microscopic perforations to form. And this is known as leaky gut syndrome. So when you have leaky gut, the food particles pass through the holes in your intestine. They enter the bloodstream. Your immune system sees them, doesn't know what to make of them, so it identifies them as foreign invaders that needs to be destroyed. So it goes on the attack, and it ends up attacking those particles and whatever body tissues get in the way. And this causes inflammation, so you start getting, colitis or whatever. It can result in food allergies, chronic fatigue. It can result in rheumatoid arthritis and other inflammatory autoimmune conditions, lupus, all kinds of stuff. So here I've taken like the most mundane thing in the world, and you've done it right when you've sort of totally changed the person's mindset. They look at the world a little differently now than they did before they read this.
No, I mean, just in the last 2 minutes, by taking something as simple as chewing, but explaining what's going on and how it affects it, I mean, completely shifted my whole thinking. I mean, I don't think anyone listening right now, if they really paid attention to what you just said, did not immediately have a paradigm shift.
So let me pull the curtain, and I'll show you exactly what I just did. See, you've heard the expression, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you just told them. Well, here's my version of that. Tell them why what you're about to tell them is important. Then tell them the thing. Then tell them why what you just told them is important. So the first part of that is sort of the pitch for the pitch, if you will. I'm teasing you. Hey, Joe, it doesn't involve any exercise. It costs nothing. It's easy to do. And as I'm rattling all the things that it's not, you're saying to yourself, well, what could it be, right? So basically, it's like bullets. If you've ever seen the bullets in boardrooms promotions, I was talking to you in bullets. I was giving you these little teasers of what I'm about to tell you. And then I revealed it. Now, when you reveal something that's really mundane like that, there's going to be a letdown. So you have to immediately address that. You have to go, that's right, it's eating your food, you've heard it a million times, but nobody does it. And then you immediately launch into the proof of why it's more important, and you just pile on reason after reason after reason. And so that's the formula.
That's great. So how would the people that are listening, how should they approach looking at their copy and how to take things that they think have no excitement whatsoever, but as you just clearly demonstrated, you can take pretty much anything and infuse enthusiasm, knowledge, excitement, and persuasion into almost anything. So how do you recommend our listeners take what it is we've spoken about on this Genius Network interview? And I'd like to, we've got a few more minutes, but I'd like to, talk about leveraging what it is they got and mistakes people make. Those are couple things I want to cover. The main thing, though, is how does everyone that's listening take their business, take what it is they're doing, and put this insight that they now have about the importance of copy into it and make it work?
All right. So, what you want to do is you want to start writing down features of your product or service. That's the most basic level, because anybody can list features, right? You don't have to be a copywriter to list features, right? So what's a feature? A feature is my air purifier has a 3-speed fan, and it has a HEPA filter and a carbon filter and a ultraviolet light. Or my feature is our trucks are new. All our carpet cleaning techs wear little booties on their feet. We guarantee you that we'll never be an hour later than we said. Like a big, you've heard the thing about what's the biggest frustration people have in your product or service category. and be the opposite of that. So maybe the frustration, I don't know if this is the case with carpet cleaners like it is like with the cable guy, but they tell you, well, someone will be there between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. And you're like, well, thanks a lot. I'm in prisoner now in my house waiting for this doofus to show up, right? So maybe your feature is we give you a 1 hour window, and if we don't meet that window, you get, $50 or something. I'm just making it up, right? Whatever your features are, you list them. You make columns. So column 1 is features, and you just list all the features. You could do it like on an Excel spreadsheet, or you could just do it in paper and pencil, whatever. So next to the feature, you write so what. And the so what leads you to the benefit. So if a feature is we do the 1 hour window, the benefit is you're not left waiting around. If the feature is we put little booties on our feet, the benefit is we don't traipse mud all over your carpet. If the feature is my air cleaner has a carbon filter, the benefit is it doesn't just take out particles, it also takes out odors and volatile organic compounds, right? So that's pretty cool. And if you do nothing but that, you're ahead of most of the world. But let's say you want to go up a notch. After that column, you write so what again. And that goes to the deeper benefit. And so we don't put dirt all over your carpet. The deeper benefit is, you don't have to live in filth. Or maybe a deeper benefit after that is you're not embarrassed when people come over. Because now we're getting into the emotional benefits, right? Clayton's very big on what he calls feature, then functional benefit, then emotional benefit, then deeper emotional benefit. And you just keep asking, so what, so what, so what? And you find all the stuff that's the real hot button for people. And very often that's the stuff you can use in your post-selling after you reveal the thing, right?
Well, and this process you just explained is huge. I mean, and I think most people can intellectually agree that it's a great thing and that would be really cool to do. I would like to take it to where everyone that's listening really does. They either you can do this on a notepad. I mean, you just gave me an idea of how I'm going to do this with my 25K group, because I've never actually done this process for a couple of things that I do that would be huge in terms of me identifying where I'm leaving money on the table. This would be a great exercise of just getting clear on what it is you actually sell and why. And so, okay, so say someone else does that. What else would they do?
Proof. The biggest problem I see with most advertising is there's not enough proof in it. If you look at, a great example is the internet marketing guru market, right? And it's like every web page looks exactly the same. You have a really long, wordy headline that just says everything everybody else is saying. Then you have an opening statement. Then you have a whole bunch of testimonials and endorsements. Then some other crap, and then the offer, right? It's like they're totally relying on testimonials as the only form of proof they're using in their ad. And guess what? The FTC just basically screwed that whole plan, right? For listeners who aren't familiar with this stuff, the FTC came in and said, when you use a testimonial, it's not enough to just say this result's not typical, your results may vary. You have to now say what the typical result is. Well, how the heck am I supposed to know what the typical result is? I have 100,000 customers. I'm going to go poll all of them to find out what the result was, so to satisfy the FTC. So if you're one of those people, there's a huge number of them, the vast majority, where you're relying on testimonials as your only form of proof, you're basically screwed now. So, there's other kinds of proof that you should be using in your advertising. One of them is what we just talked about. You're proving just by giving them cool info. That in and of itself, it's proof. It's your info in action. I mean, you can't get better than that. Okay, here's a great proof element. Great way to do this. This is like a formula I use. I don't see anybody else doing it. This is a big secret I'm revealing here. You can make people believe the most outlandish claim in the world when you do this. Okay. Joe, is there a cure for the common cold?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, guess what? There is. There's 2 treatments. One of them is ultraviolet blood irradiation. The other one is intravenous hydrogen peroxide. Most people don't know about it. There's maybe 500 doctors in the country who do this. You go to the doctor, you get an IV. It's a regular saline IV, but they also have a little bit of hydrogen peroxide in it. And I had the flu one time, right? I had all the nasal sniffling, everything, all the symptoms. I was in so much pain. You know how you're all achy when you get the flu? It hurts so much. You know, when you're sick, you just want to sleep it off, right? Well, I couldn't sleep because the mere act of my skin against the mattress was too painful, and I couldn't sleep. So I went to a doctor who does this intravenous hydrogen peroxide therapy. By that afternoon, I felt like I just had a regular cold. The next day, I went back, got another treatment. By that evening, I was shoveling construction debris. That's how powerful this stuff is. Now, here's the reason it works. There's a couple of reasons. First of all, it oxygenates the tissues of your blood. See, the way all the cells in your body, it goes in your blood and oxygenates the cells of your body. The way your cells make energy is they take fuel plus oxygen, and that creates energy. And that creates the ATP molecule that you probably know about, you know, from working out and stuff. So every cell in your body works better when it's hyperoxygenated like that, and the immune cells are no different. So here you have your immune system just kind of puttering along, but once you get this stuff, it's like your immune system on steroids, and it goes and gobbles up all the germs. The other reason it works is that hydrogen peroxide is sort of like a free radical. So when you have a virus, the virus hijacks different cells. And what this does, the hydrogen peroxide, it's a free radical. Your healthy cells that haven't been compromised by virus, they're fine because they have a lot of antioxidant capacity, and they just shrug it away. But the weakened cells that have the virus in them, they're killed by the hydrogen peroxide. And as a result, your cold goes away in like a day instead of a week. And there's been a bunch of studies done on this. There's like over 2,000 articles in the medical literature written about it, and it's even been studied at, you know, like some big universities here. Mostly it's done in Europe, but there's a few here that are catching on. So what do you think? Does that sound like a cool thing you'd want to do?
It's totally fascinating. I'm sitting here thinking, where would I find one of these doctors?
I'll give you a website where you could find one, is oxygenhealingtherapies.com, and you could go click on a doctor. Now, what did I just do? I just took the most outlandish claim in the world, right, that I can cure the common cold, right? Well, if you can cure it, why haven't I heard it before, right, all this? And I convinced you because I used this 3-part formula that I'm going to tell you what it is right now.
No, well, first off, is what you say, is it all true?
It's all true. Everything I said is 100% true. I mean, I may have gotten some of the specific, like 2,000 articles. I think it's 2,000. I may be off on that, but everything's true that I said. The story is 100% true. I'll tell you what I did. Here's what you do. Start with a story. Then, from the story, segue right into the scientific explanation or the reason why explanation. And then the third thing you do is you cite your studies and your facts and figures. Okay, so I started with a story about me. Could have been about another patient, but I started about me because it happened to me. I segued right into why it works, and I may have gotten some of the particulars off, but the way it was explained to me by a doctor, I think I'm pretty accurate in what I said. And then I segued into there's been over 2,000 studies in this and that. Now, why do I do it in that order? Because of what we talked about earlier. People buy emotionally and they justify it rationally. So what's the most emotional part is the story, right? So you start with that. What's the most rational part is the facts and figures and studies. So you end with those. Now, if you were to open with the facts and figures, which a lot of people do, you don't want to do that because now you're putting the person's brain in logical critical mode. You don't want to do that, right? If you're trying to work somebody up into a frenzy of desire, do you want them in logical critical mode? No. So you start with the most emotional type of proof, which is a story. And then you segue into see, when you tell one story, they're like, yeah, that could be a fluke, so what? Your cold got better. Maybe it would have gotten better anyway. So now you say, well, it's not a fluke. Here's why it works. And you give the scientific reason explanation. And then to just top it off, it's like the final coup de grace. You give them the studies. And now it's like this airtight argument, and like they can't dispute it.
That's totally fascinating. First off, I love that. Secondly, I was completely engaged, and so you're saying that, is that the process you do with everything that you pretty much write about? Is that how you think it through?
If I'm writing about, a cure for toe fungus or something, do I really need to go into all that? No.
Well, Parris, that is freaking awesome. I'm like sitting here with my brain sort of scrambled, thinking at all of the different applications, and I thought I knew a ton about structure and formulas and everything. But you've just given me some perspective that I think can help me mine some gold that is sitting in my own existing business at Piranha Marketing and Genius Network I haven't even thought through. So I'd like to ask you about the word leverage. I think copy in marketing is the most leverageable asset and skill that someone could have. So we're pretty much running out of time, and there's so much more I'd like to talk with you about. And what I want to do is put it out to the Genius Network subscriber list that if they found this conversation with you very, very valuable, to just let me know. And if you're agreeable to it, if we could do maybe a follow-up interview in the future.
Yeah, we could do that. And hopefully it won't take us, 8 years to do the next one like it did this one.
Well, okay. Well, so you've only been interviewed how many times in the past?
Well, you're only the third person who I've done one with. I don't like to do these because, I'm not on the guru circuit. Not there's anything wrong with it. It's just like, I'm not doing it. I'm kind of a private person. I'm publicity shy. I'm not looking for clients. But you're only the third person I ever agreed to besides Clayton and Michael Masterson.
Both of who are extremely sharp, very smart, very successful marketers. Let me make a point of this, though, just so, because this is not some sort of weird takeaway selling thing. I'm going to ask you why you agreed to do an interview with me then in just a minute, because I'm curious. So really, if people want to go and hire a copywriter and find someone or any of the people you've trained, how would they go about doing it? What recommendations do you have for people for engaging a world-class copywriter like yourself to assist them with building and growing the heck out of their businesses?
I think you want to look at what else they've done. It's all about track record. Like I said earlier in the call, you can't snow people in this direct response business. Everything's measurable to the penny. So let them show you samples of what they've done. And then after they've shown you the samples, don't just take their word for it. Call up the person who they did it for. See, sometimes you'll get a sample and then you find out, well, that's like the client took it over and finished it because their copy was lousy, It's just like anything else, references. Get 3 people who they've worked with and ask them about the guy or the gal.
Where do you find these people? I mean, I'm of course, I have JoePolishRecommends.com where I recommend, various copywriters, and I'll bring people like you that are the top of the top down to, for my 25K group, to present to those individuals. But for the most part, for just someone out there that really doesn't even know where to start on hiring a copywriter, any tips or suggestions you could give them?
What I think, where I think a good place to go would be to any kind of seminar environment. Because the good copywriters never stop learning. They're always going to seminars. So any kind of marketing seminar, whether it's one of your events or Dan Kennedy or Jay Abraham or any of the, Frank Kern, any of those internet marketing things, there's going to be copywriters there. And so you get a bunch of them, and then you look at their stuff, and you whittle it down to the 1 or 2 or 3 who you think can do the job for you. Now, if you're a mom-and-pop business, it's not going to be that difficult because, like I said, even half-assed copy is going to be better than what your competitors are doing. If you're a big marketer, well, then you pretty much know who the players are in the business for the most part. You learn about new people you never heard of from time to time, but,
Gary Halbert used to say that the difference between being rich and being broke is one good sales letter. Or, another way he would say it is, you're just one sales letter away from being a millionaire. I mean, he would make comments like that. Do you agree with that? Do you find that to be true?
It's happened. It happens. Not every letter you're doing is not going to do that, but I've written, most of my letters do in the millions because just who I'm writing for, they got big, they mail in the, I've done one that did $50 or $60 million. So, yeah, it's totally doable. But, the most important thing is find out what people want and sell it to them, If you're trying to sell something nobody wants, even the best copy in the world is not going to do it.
Well, Parris, you're one of the greatest copywriters on the planet, and you don't do stuff like this before. Why'd you agree to do a Genius Network interview with me? I mean, we know each other personally, and I really.
Well, yeah, two reasons. Number one, because you're my friend. Number two, because honestly, I feel a debt of gratitude to you. This Genius Network stuff has really helped me out a lot in my life. I mean, you've turned me on to so many amazing thought leaders and thinkers. Everything from marketing guys to health people to business building gurus to investment guys. I mean, you've really expanded my mind. I've been a subscriber since going back to day one. How many years is that? 12 years or whatever. And it's just great stuff. And I just I feel very privileged to be a part of it.
Yeah, well, I'm so happy to actually have finally done an interview with you, and I'm looking forward to even doing a follow-up one, because I know there's so much more that you could share, and you gave me some really, really incredible insights, and so I hope everyone that's listening really understood a couple of the processes, even the starting the writing, the features, and the writing. So what I would recommend everyone do that right now, since it's fresh in your mind after having listened to Parris explain it. And Parris, any famous last words before we wrap up? I want to give any final.
Yeah, you know what? You can learn a lot about copywriting through osmosis. So if you read lots of great copy all the time, after a while you're kind of like, it's created new neural pathways in your brain. Or better yet, if you're copying down those sales pieces by hand. So I'll give you a phone number. It's a client of mine who puts out what I think is the best health newsletters out there. And the phone number is 1-800-791-3392. And you can subscribe to Second Opinion newsletter or Real Cures newsletter or Women's Health letter. I don't know how many women we have on the call, but, all great stuff. And if you buy one thing from them, you'll start getting all their mailings. So most of the copy coming through that company has either been written by me or I was the copy chief where another writer wrote it.
So that's a perfect way to literally get a lesson in killer copy by reading it and seeing it, by subscribing to something that's probably enormously valuable, which I'm going to do, because I don't currently subscribe to those newsletters. If at least that's what they are. Are they newsletters?
Yeah, they're newsletters, and you'll start getting sales pitches for vitamins and supplements as well.
Well, Parris, as always, it's always a pleasure to talk with you. And anything else you want to say?
No, man, just as great talking to you. I had a blast.
Yeah, thank you. And for all the listeners out there, remember, copy is the oxygen that makes your business work. I always think of a business, the anatomy of a successful business. And without copy and without the elements that Parris talked about, the organism is just simply not going to function as well. And if you want to be an elite athlete, you got to train, you got to eat, you got to put something into your system in the right way. And if you want to have a marketing business that just kicks ass and takes names, you got to have this stuff down. So hopefully this helped take you to a whole nother level of your thinking and your skill set, and you have a whole perspective change on what you can do to basically leverage yourself and do better than you're doing now. So Parris, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Joe.
Hello, this is Joe Polish. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to this interview. I hope you found it very useful. Please give me your feedback on all of the interviews that you listen to. I'd love to hear your feedback so we can always deliver a great program for you. Our website is www.joepolish.com, and we also have a Joe Polish Recommends section, so you can take a lot of the ideas and concepts that you hear on my Genius Network interview series and apply them to your business and find vendors and resources. You can go to joepolish.com to find that information and click on the Joe Polish Recommends section. And also, if you would like to find out about more interviews and invest in more useful Genius Network series interviews, go to www.geniusnetwork.com. Thanks, and eat your competition alive.